Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a major winter storm that's going to be impacting portions of the northern plains, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast. Some areas could be picking up as much as 6 to 12 or even more inches of snowfall. We'll be giving you the GFS and the European model and breaking down what both models are showing for the system. So we definitely have a lot of different factors to contest with this system. We have windy conditions out ahead of the system as well as warm air ahead of it. We have some very cold air behind the system and potentially some heavy snow further to the north, and then we might even be dealing with some sort of ice event over portions of the central plains and the central United States. So we definitely have, again, a lot of different factors with this system. So let's get right into it, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. Here's your National Weather Service page. We have just some scattered watches and advisories, nothing really of significance. We have a few inches of snowfall that's going to be falling over portions of Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, and into Nebraska. Some of these areas, again, could be seeing maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 5 inches of snowfall in portions of northeastern Wisconsin. We also see some more winter weather advisories for portions of the Rockies into Nevada and California, as well as in those pinks, some of those winter storm warnings in Southern California. We also see some dense fog advisories in effect for portions of Oregon and Idaho, and then I believe those are freezing fog advisories in effect for portions of Oregon and California. We also see some winter weather, or some wind advisories actually, for portions of Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, as well as for portions of western upstate New York. And then we have some winter weather related advisories and warnings for portions of southwestern Alaska. So here is the current GFS model run. This is the morning run of the GFS, and let's break down what this model is showing. We see some very intense low pressure system for the west coast that's going to be driving into portions of California. The mountains could be seeing some snowfall out of this, and maybe even closer to 2 feet of snowfall in some areas of the Sierra Nevadas. And then as we continue this forward, you start to see that by Monday night and into Tuesday morning, this is when the storm really starts to develop. And by tomorrow, I'll have my snowfall forecast only for the northern plains and generally the central plains, where I'm going to be talking about my snowfall forecast for those areas. But I won't give my snowfall forecast for the rest of this storm just because it's a little bit too uncertain for me to really give out a snowfall forecast just yet. So again, this is by Tuesday morning, the 29th. We're dealing with some of that ice over portions of Kansas, snow further to the north in Nebraska, the Dakotas, and into Iowa. As we continue this forward, you start to see that by Tuesday early afternoon, we're dealing with some of that snow breaking out over portions of the northern plains. We have some actually rather chilly air ahead of the system as you get east of the main precipitation. So we have a little bit of a dip in the jet stream right around here, and then we have another dip in the jet stream as you get further into the western U.S. But then we have a little bit of warm air try to move into the central U.S., and that's what's going to be bringing some of this ice through here, because we have a cold environment, but we also have some ice, and we also have some warm air that's going to be combining with some of that colder air, and that'll allow for some of that ice to form over pretty much the center of the system. So as we get to Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, that snow is heading further to the east. We see some rather moderate to heavy snowfall over portions of the upper Great Lakes, and then as we get through Wednesday and getting through the early afternoon on Wednesday, we actually do see a little bit of convective activity through portions of Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, and potentially even a little bit further north of there. So if you do live within that area, definitely be aware of the potential for some severe weather. I wouldn't be surprised if the Storm Prediction Center actually puts out a marginal or even slight risk of severe weather on Wednesday or into Thursday morning. So definitely, if you do live within that area, definitely be prepared for the threat of some severe weather. And then we start to see the system actually take a rather similar shape to what we saw on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, where you have that low pressure up into portions of Ontario and Quebec, Canada, but we also see some rather warm air ahead of it with some rather cold air on the backside. So you might actually see a switch over to some snowfall on that back end for Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. And then you start to see that cold air move further to the east. You see that snow press into portions of the Ohio Valley, but what the GFS does is it shuts off that precipitation on that back end. You don't see too much snowfall out of that one for portions of, let's say, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and anywhere east of there. Those areas don't see too much, but you might see a little bit more with the second redeveloping low pressure system over portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. We start to see that big low pressure system head further to the north, and as we play this through, this would be by Friday morning. we have a rather heavy band of ice precipitation, which could definitely be an issue if you live over northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, in that area, where maybe you could be seeing some heavy ice precipitation. Again, this is only one model's interpretation of all this data, so I'm also going to be showing you the European model, and they are rather similar for this far out, so it's definitely very interesting how similar they are, and they actually do agree on quite a bit with this system. So we see that by Friday morning, January 1st, we're dealing with a lot of that snow over portions of New England, the Northeast, and back through into the upper Great Lakes, and then even through the Mississippi River Valley, where some of these areas are dealing with some snowfall. And then that low pressure continues to head further to the north into portions of Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and then back through northern New England, where some areas are getting moderate to heavy snowfall, if this were to be the case. And then as we get through January 2nd, which would be Saturday, January 2nd, we're dealing with that system really pulling away, and I think probably by Saturday night or Sunday morning, we're just dealing with some scattered rain or snow showers over the Northeast, and nothing of real significance. So here's what the European model is showing with this event. Again, your system is down through portions of the southwestern United States with some scattered rain or snow showers over a lot of those areas. It would be by Monday night, and the system really does start to head further to the east, and you start to see it heading out of the Rockies. Then as we get through Tuesday morning, we're dealing with that ice setting up over portions of Kansas and some snow setting up further to the north. And actually the ice is probably going to be a bigger issue than the snow, because some of these models are putting out rather heavy amounts of ice over portions of Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee. So that could definitely be a major issue if that does end up coming to fruition, if we actually do see such a rather large ice event. So if that does continue to be if the models continue to show this in the models, I'll definitely continue to cover that for you guys, and I'll definitely keep you updated, because that could probably be a bigger story than all that snow further to the north. Ice actually causes a lot more issues than snow, because ice can bring down power lines. It can definitely make roads very, very slick, and especially if you get over about 1/10 of an inch of ice, that can definitely become a major hazard. So here would be by Tuesday morning, and we're starting to deal with some of that snow moving into the northern plains. We have rain and ice to the south, and as we continue through the day on Tuesday and into Wednesday morning, some of that snow is heading into the northern plains and the Great Lakes. Then we start to see that by Wednesday morning, the 30th of December, we're dealing with some rain again further to the south. We have some actually rather cold air further to the east over portions of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, where we're dealing with a wedge of some colder air pushing further to the south. But we do see a little bit of warmer air pushing through the central part of the United States, where that system is really dragging in some of that warmer air. And then again, behind the system, that's where you're dealing with that cold air that might transition some of that rain into snow on that back end of the system. So here's by Wednesday night, and we're dealing with some rather impressive snowfall for portions of the northern Great Lakes and the upper Great Lakes. But then the European brings some of that snowfall on that back end for portions of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. And you start to see that the European model actually doesn't shut off any of that precipitation. It continues to keep some of that snowfall going for some of those areas, but we also do see that redeveloping low pressure system over Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas, in that area, where the European model actually brings out some very, very heavy ice precipitation. That's almost an inch of ice per 6 hours, which would be right around half or a quarter of an inch of ice per hour or so. So that's definitely a very, very major threat, and if that were to be the case, which I don't think it's going to be that intense, but if that were to be the case, that would definitely be a major issue. And that system continues to pull to the north as we get to Friday morning, kind of similar to what the GFS was showing, and it's actually rather impressive how similar these two models are. And then as we get through January 1st and getting through the 2nd, we're seeing that ice pull away to the north and the northeast, and then we're seeing some of that snow wrap around on the back end over Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, and into Wisconsin. And then we see a lot of that warmer air head further to the east. We're dealing with a lot of warm air, potentially into the 50s and 60s again for portions of the eastern United States. And then that system goes out. It really leaves behind some rather chilly air on that back end. And we're back into more of a zonal flow, a west to east pattern, which would definitely be a lot more conducive for some of that snowfall if you live over the Ohio Valley and the Northeast, where you're not dealing with those systems moving from the south to the north. Instead, they'll be going from the west to the east, which which is actually rather good if you do like cold and snow over the eastern United States. So here's what the European model shows for snowfall out of this event, and we're looking at anywhere in those grays, under an inch to 2 inches, 2 to 6 inches in the blues, 6 to 10 inches in the purples, and then 10 plus inches in those pinks. And as we get into the lighter pinks, that's where you're even dealing with 20 plus inches. So I would definitely cut these numbers in half. The models this far out do like to overestimate things, so cut all these numbers in half, and that's where you'll get a rather good estimation of what you might see out of the system. You can see how the European model drags in some of that heavier snow further to the south as that system wraps around on that back end. So I'm going to circle this. This is the black, and that is in the black. That's what the European model shows for the main band of snowfall. And then here's what the GFS shows. So you can see how on the same map, this is all shifted a little bit further east because the GFS forms that low pressure over Mississippi and Alabama, and not Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas like the European does. So definitely we do see that the European model, which I highlighted in black, that main area of snow is further west than what we see at the GFS. They are similar, they have a similar setup, but it's just exactly where that sets up. That's going to be a big difference. For example, portions of eastern Oklahoma on the European, we're seeing maybe closer to 15 inches of snowfall. On the GFS model, they're seeing 0 inches. So you can see how flexible these models are and how much they really can change. And this is just a good example of that. So I'll continue tracking this. By tomorrow, I'll have my snowfall forecast for this area over the northern plains and the central U.S. for Tuesday into Wednesday. And then we'll talk about the rest of the system as well in greater detail in tomorrow's video, and probably in Tuesday's video, we'll have a much better idea of what may happen. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.